Hi Year 9, Mr. Tapley here to walk you through your next lesson of Year 9 Geography. This lesson we are going to be looking at our food security CAT, so the final assessment for 2020, very long year, I know, but we're looking at food security levels in a specific nation. So each group of 2 to 4 students will select one country of the world. They'll be looking at food security levels, causes, concerns, and brainstorming a few solutions. So I'll be going through the instructions, the assessment outline. I'll be going over very quickly the rubric as well, so what you're getting graded on. And of course, if you have any questions, the best thing you can do is to ask those questions. If you have questions or concerns about the content, about the rubric, about the deadline, the best thing you can do is to email your teacher ahead of schedule or to ask them in or out of class. Happy to help, but you need to let us know that you need help. Anyway, so we are looking at food security for our assessment. Just a quick little intro here. In 2050, you will be one of 9 billion people relying on our planet to produce all your needs, relying on those biomes, the environments that support us. I'm trying to connect the two areas of studies. However, in the future, there will be an increasing pressure on our planet to meet these demands. A range of factors will influence the Earth's ability to support its people and secure their food supply. Consider the threats to our biomes and food security we have examined in geography. So how will climate change, population, overpopulation, poverty, and food waste impact our world? In this assessment, you will select a nation. You will be working in groups, so there will definitely be enough countries to go around. If you need to double up with another group, I'm not necessarily going to outlaw that. It's not illegal. However, I don't want to be grading 10 Australia food security cats. So you will need to let me know, pending teacher approval, 1, who your group is, so I know that you work effectively together, and 2, what your topic is. In this assessment, you'll select a nation, investigate their levels of food security or insecurity, challenges or threats to their food security, and then create recommendations for future improvements. Assessment will be completed in groups of 2 to 4. You'll be provided 4 to 6 lessons of class time to finish the CAT by the due date. I don't think you will need 6 lessons. It's modeled kind of similar, I guess, in terms of structure after the dev task. So you've had practice doing this sort of assessment before. Working in groups, you can divide the workload up, so it's nice and easy to get this done by the due date. And I'll explain when that is, depending on which class you're part of. So the CAT has been divided into several sections. And again, if you're working in a group, you can divide this up. So Jono works on group section 1, Billy works on section 2, Bobby works on section 3. I'm not good with names. But anyway, the first section you need to provide is some background information about your nation. So before you tell me, here's what food security is in Brazil, tell me about Brazil. Tell me the relevant geographical information about Brazil's location, their environment, their people. Section 2 is when you get into the problems. So the food security threats. Identify and explain factors threatening food security. Section 3 is when you solve all the world's problems. Food security solutions. So outline recommendations to address food security challenges. Assessment may be completed as a Google Slides presentation. In the past, we've had students do very creative little video documentaries where they've gone outside and pretended the barren oval that we have is the plains of Africa, but poster, that's always a popular one, or any other informative or engaging format you can think of. I've seen some really cool websites that have been created for this CAT, a little booklet, like a travel info booklet, whatever. Again, pending teacher approval. You just need to let us know beforehand what sort of CAT you're creating so we know that what you're doing and that you will have enough time to complete it. Because in the past, a few people have really struggled with the videos have been very creative, very engaging, hard to focus in on that if you guys mess around and play outside. It usually ends with most video groups getting theirs in at the very last second. And they usually say, oh, we should have done much better, but we just wasted our time in class. Anyway, so let us know what sort of CAT you're doing. You will also need a resource list. So you don't need a formal bibliography with referencing of Chicago and Harvard style and blah, 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 blah. But you do need a list of resources included in your presentation so I can verify that your supporting evidence is legitimate, and I can verify that you haven't plagiarized any of that information. We do have a cool little feature in Google Classroom that does help us do that, check plagiarism. So don't think you just have to trick Mr. Tapley, you have to trick Google as well. And that's saying something. Cool. So that's the general instructions, I guess. What we've got now, Section 1, Section 2, and I'll go through Section 3 as well. So in Section 1, you're just giving me a lot of background information, really, just so I can place your country into the context of where it is and what it is. So this information, outlining relevant geographical information, may include the location, so where is it, the specific region, continent of the world. If you want to flex your geographical knowledge and your skills, put in the specific latitude and longitude coordinates. People, so tell me about the people in your country, so the population size, characteristics, so the size of the population will obviously impact food security, so that's very relevant to include. Demographic, ethnicities, population growth, is it going up or down, because that's going to impact food security. Their overall health, so what is the life expectancy of people living in your country. Environment, so connecting it again to our first area of study, looking at different biome types, the climate in your country, if you have enough rainfall to support food, support farming. Landforms, mountains and rivers, access to water is important for food. Wildlife, vegetation, economics as well. You can tell me a bit about the monies in your country, employment, GDP per person, per capita, imports and exports. Do you guys have to import a lot of your food? And then food security, obviously. You should definitely include some information about food security. So what are these staple foods in your country? You can use the textbook, that map that we have in chapter, I want to say 11, but it might be 13. Agriculture, so what's farming like in your country? Food affordability, accessibility, and quality. So those three, factors that are used to assess food security. Note, it is important to only include relevant, recent, and reliable information from reputable sources. So it needs to be relevant. I don't want you to be like, well, Mr. Tapley, in Germany, they have a national holiday that celebrates hats, because that's not really helpful. That doesn't tell me about the geographical, context of your country, and doesn't tell me about food security, so I don't care. It needs to be recent. If you say to me, well, Mr. Tapley, food security in 1945 was, I'm going to be like, well, I don't really care. Reliable, it needs to be reliable. You can't say, well, according to Jono's Weebly from year 3 in Mount Waverly North. No, that's why we're including the resource list. Again, the focus of the information should connect to anything that's related to food security, influencing national food security. The textbook, the class slides, and of course your personal notes should provide you with some support resources and some research, but we have given you a few websites at the end of this to guide your efforts, I suppose. So that's section 1. Section 2, problems. In this section, you should explain 3 geographical factors, so 3 threats, 3 challenges that are negatively influencing national food security. What you need to do with those 3 food security threats is to place them into the correct category of sheeped. That's hard to say. The sheeped factors that are influencing really anything in geography, but we're looking at them in food security. So you need to pick 3 factors that are influencing food security in a bad way. So let's say climate change. That would be placed into environmental. If I was to look at, I don't know, let's say the government in my country has all the food. There's enough food to feed everyone, but they're stealing it all from themselves. So that corruption of political systems, that would be political. So you need 3 threats, and then you need to place them into the sheeped categories, and then explain how does this influence food security. So you've got, again, S, social, so anything really relating to the people. H, historical, so the history of the region. So if there's been a horrible war there in the past 10 years, that's going to influence food security, so maybe that's a threat. Environmental, economic, political, and technological. Section 3, food security solutions. So in your assessment, we want you to end on a nice positive note. We're not asking you to solve world hunger, but you should propose several recommendations, several strategies to improve food security in your select nation. These solutions may be short-term or long-term. They can be local, national, or global efforts. They can be individual efforts by just your country, or you can collaborate. You can recommend that another country helps you, or another organization like the United Nations come in and help you with food security. So there's lots and lots of ways to address these challenges. You just need to make sure that they are reasonable. So you can't just say, Mr. Tapley, we don't have enough food. Solution, get more food. Be a bit more considerate of the specific challenges in your nation. So if you have a problem in your country with infrastructure, so let's say you've got all the food in the world, but the roads, the bridges, and the transport from the farms to the city suck. So all the food just keeps flying off the road as the cars crash into a tree. Your solution shouldn't be, we should make more food. Your solution should address the problem. So we need better roads. That'll improve food security in your specific nation. If you've got the problem of climate change affecting you, don't just say, Mr. Tapley, solve climate change. Be like, no. Focus again specifically on what climate change is going to do to your food security and how can you fix that. So you could think of renewable energies, or if it's going to raise the water and flood away all your farms, you can think about finding new farmland or raising the farmland. Anyway, so recommendations should be specific. You can look at how other nations with really good food security are addressing food security concerns. If you're struggling to identify solutions, again, investigate the strengths in other nations using this website here. That's my favorite one, Food Security Index. And reflect upon how you can replicate that success in your country using technology, infrastructure, agricultural innovation, so different types of farming techniques. Again, these support resources will help you. Those are just some general ones, but in this one and then in the FAO, you should be able to find information about your specific country. So some really good websites to help you out there. What I would also say, and I should have said at the start, sorry, when you select your country, make sure before you get like 3 lessons in that there is enough information about your country. So you obviously don't want to look at food security in North Korea because there's not going to be much information to research for your topic. And then also if you select, let's say, food security in Singapore, which is like the best country in the world in terms of food security, going to be really hard to come up with threats and solutions. So what I recommend is selecting one that does have some threats, some areas for improvement, so that you can, 1, identify them and explain them, and then 2, address them in section 3. So don't pick the perfect country for this cat. It's just at that start. Sorry. Anyway, but we are at the end of the instructions. I've just got a quick blurb here about the rubric that you should definitely read before going on to the rubric. The assessment needs to demonstrate your geographical skills and knowledge. Whatever format you select for the cat, and this is important, you must include at least 3 visual representations of data. So you need at least 3 graphs or maps in your assessment so that you can, 1, enhance your presentation, I suppose, in terms of the food security info that's coming out of it. And then 2, you can illustrate your data interpretation skills. So using that PQE template that we've explored towards the end of this template, you need to prove that, 1, I can find and use information, this visual representation of data, geographical information relating to food security in my cats. And 2, I can interpret it. I can analyze information coming at me. I don't need to just read what Mrs. Hadley's written on the side or in the textbook. If you give me the information, I can find the answer myself. So you need 3 visuals, 3 graphs or maps related to food security. The final step before completing your CAT is to complete an individual reflection using the conversation feature in Compass Learning Task. So it's not going to be something massive. I'm just going to give you a few reflection questions later towards the end of the CAT, asking you, what did I do for the group in terms of my individual contribution? What is my understanding of food security? And what could I improve upon? What could our group improve on in the future? Just getting you to think about your thinking, I guess. And hopefully when you do that, your reflection, you might be able to find an area of improvement before you submit the CAT. So if you say, well, I didn't really do this section here really well. Oh, I've still got a day. Let's fix that up. Use the rubric on the following page. It's not actually on the following page. It's a separate file because I couldn't get Google Docs to do a landscape page next to a portrait page. Anyway, use the following rubric to guide your efforts in this assessment. My pet peeve as a teacher is when students do the CAT, submit the CAT, get the feedback for the CAT, and they say, where's the rubric? 2 weeks after we've completed the CAT. You should be looking at that rubric in the beginning, in the middle, and in the end of your CAT efforts. You should be using it through the planning stage, through the writing stage, through the editing stage. There's no point completing an amazing geography presentation unless it is really meeting what we need. If you make this most wonderful, most beautiful presentation about food security, but you don't do this or this, it's not going to do well in terms of your overall grade. So you need to use the rubric to help guide your efforts throughout the CAT. Keep referring back to it. It should be stapled to your head so that you can see it. Well, I suppose you wouldn't be able to see it, but you know what I mean. Note, whether you are submitting your CAT to Compass or Google Classroom, remember to include each group member's name in the assessment or the file title, just so that we can keep track of who has submitted what. So if Johnny hasn't submitted his, and I'm starting to get a bit nervous, and I give him like an overdue notification, I'll say, oh, whoops, I just missed that he submitted it for Bobby's presentation. So make sure at the start, the first slide or the top of the poster, you say who is in your group. Cool. I'm not going to go through this rubric in too much detail. It is there. I want you to look at it. But you can see that there are 3 rubric criterion for the key sections. So you're being graded on section 1, section 2, section 3. And then the other thing you're getting graded on are those visuals. So your 3 visuals of data, the maps or the graphs, and your PQE. What I would say about the rubric is pay attention to the words that are underlined. So the kind of key instructional terms, the difference between describing something versus identifying something, the difference between explaining something versus identifying something. That's really all the differences between 1 mark and full marks. Students get very, very close. They obviously know what they're talking about, but unless they go that extra step and they write an extra sentence or an extra fact, an extra statistic, it really is that simple to move from here to here. So make sure you're paying attention to those underlined instructional terms. I've tried to highlight what you need to know for each of those sections, I suppose. So for geographical context, for example, again, to get to the highest standard, you should be outlining. Don't just say, look, it's over there. You should be explaining it in a bit of detail. You should be looking at key features of the environment, population, explaining how your location, your country, and its geographical context is connected to food security, so the interconnection. You should be using evidence, so statistics, example, from a range of sources, whereas over here, it's just evidence. So you should be able to see the difference between best, okay, less than okay. And then, make sure that you've read through the rubric. If you have any questions about the rubric, please let me know. If you have any questions about the cat, please let me know. Hope you guys are feeling all right towards the end of the period. I know it's a busy time of year with assessments. So if you are feeling stressed or fatigued and you need some extra support, again, please let us know, and we'll see what we can do about an extension or giving you extra time in class. Thanks, guys. Cheers.